Did any of us actually expect a Legends game in Kalos to be next? Let alone the next game of Pokemon in general, but like, does this mean we're going to get a Legends Galar game next? I don't know. I'm literally sick with COVID right now. The plan was, a video I recorded last week was going to go up today, and Coda was working very hard on it, but I had to say, hey Coda, stop. We have to talk about Pokemon Z, because they literally announced it out of nowhere. Regardless, I am excited as hell for this, and it looks so good. So today, we're going to be talking about the trailer, breaking down as much information as we can about it, and doing a heavy speculation on what the game is going to be about. So for the first time on this channel, slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves some analysis. One of the most important things to mention right away is the Twitter post that accompanied the trailer, which we didn't see in the Pokemon Presents. The Pokemon Twitter account said, quote, Pokemon Legends ZA, an ambitious new entry to the Pokemon video game series, will launch on Nintendo Switch systems in 2025. Another tweet said, watch to see the reveal trailer for Pokemon Legends ZA, a new adventure set entirely within Lumiose City, coming to Nintendo Switch in 2025. The major takeaway here is that the game is set entirely in Lumiose City, which, if you've played X and Y, sounds terrible, because that city was essentially a circular hallway with little hallways in between. But I think it's safe to assume that they'll be massively updating and expanding on what we saw as Lumiose City for this game. I mean, looking at the map they show us alone, this place looks massive. And if we're comparing it to Legends Arceus, then it's clearly going to be a massive area with lots of places to explore. Another takeaway that I've seen people mentioning on Twitter, and I don't necessarily believe it, but it is worth mentioning, is the specific wording they're using seems to be leaking that the Nintendo Switch 2 will come out next year. Notably, the end of the trailer says launching simultaneously in 2025, and one of the Twitter posts says coming to Nintendo Switch systems, plural. Now, I see where that's coming from, but to me, simultaneous launch more so refers to launching in every region at the same time, and they've been using Nintendo Switch systems for a long time now. One, it just refers to all systems of the Nintendo Switch, but especially after the Nintendo Switch Lite came out, it just makes sense to refer to it as a plural. I'm not saying this isn't possible. That is a possible reading of this situation. I just don't think it's likely. The trailer itself is really interesting. There's a lot of fun shots of Kalos Pokemon eventually leading to the big shot of the tower in the center of Lumiose City. Like, it's a really cool trailer. But I want to focus on the aesthetics they use here. It's pretty much split into two halves that go back and forth. There's this paper planning aesthetic, and then there's also this high-tech futuristic aesthetic. We'll definitely talk about that later, but I just want to mention it here. Also, something worth mentioning is it's listed as a re-urbanization project, which means we're not building from scratch, we're rebuilding after something happened. Some other information we could glean is from the title itself, Legends ZA. Legends Arceus was named after the overarching legendary of that region, and the world itself, but you know what I mean. Instead, this game is Legends ZA, and I think it could mean a few things. One, Z is definitely and primarily a reference to Zygarde. And as far as its involvement in the story, I think the 10% Forms Dex entry that Bulbapedia shared to Twitter recently is a good point towards the right direction. Quote, when the Kalos region's ecosystem falls into disarray, it appears and reveals its secret power. If we're talking about the project of rebuilding Lumiose City, or building in the first place even, which would necessarily mean bulldozing environments and putting giant buildings in their place, that could qualify for the region's ecosystem falling. So this project could have pissed off Zygarde. But that Z isn't the only important part of the title, otherwise it would have been Pokemon Legends Z. It's ZA. So what does the A mean? It could be referring to a few things. It could even be an entirely new legendary we've never seen before, a counterpart to Zygarde. Zygarde is sort of the protector of the environment, so possibly this A legendary could be a protector of progress, of technology. But further and more concretely, ZA reminds me and a lot of others of AZ, the giant guy that lives over 3,000 years in the Kalos games. In case you haven't played X and Y, or it's just been a while, let me do a quick catch-up here. Pokemon X and Y really deal with the multiverse of Pokemon and the inciting incident that caused it. That being that 3,000 years ago there was a massive Pokemon war, and in that war a man named AZ's Floette died. So he built an ultimate machine that was able to give life back to his dead Floette. And the theory goes that in doing so, it rubbed off a bit on him, and that's why he's able to live so long. However, the war kept going on, so he converted this machine into an ultimate weapon to end the war. He fired it and did effectively end the war, but in doing so also killed his beloved Floette. This event could be the backdrop for this Legends game. It's 3,000 years ago, it's a major event, and it would probably awaken Zygarde. Not to mention, it would make a lot of sense for this game to come out right after Scarlet and Violet. I'm not the first one to suggest that the giant crater in Paldea is the result of the ultimate weapon. After all, Kalos is based on France and Paldea is based on Spain, two very nearby countries. Not only that, but if this war was actually going on, the kingdom of Paldea could have been warring against the kingdom of Kalos. Not only that, but the ultimate weapon was most likely made from or powered by mega crystals. That's why it has a crystalline structure and where we get the mega crystals in that region. Then you go and look at the Great Crater of Paldea and it's filled with crystals, the terrestrial crystals, and it's filled with Floettes. Oh, okay, bye. So this makes a lot of sense. But speaking of those terrestrial crystals, they're the very same ones that the professors use to travel either to the future or the past. They're somehow partly capable of time travel. I wonder if Pokemon Legends ZA isn't only going to take place in the past, but the past and the future. Think about it, the trailer itself teases this. We start with the paper planning of Lumio City, and then we quickly fade into this high-tech, almost VR-like experience until we eventually show the whole electric grid of this city fading back into the paper planning. Past and future. Even the logo hints to this. The Z is metallic, sharp, with hex grids all over it. Meanwhile, the A is softer, with what looks like roots growing up it. Something from the past and future. This game could be covering the two major events in Kalos history that caused Zygarde to step in. The development of Lumio City and expanding Lumio City into the surrounding area. Or possibly that A legendary we talked about. If Lumio City was being built, would it not be possible that a legendary that stands for progress and technology would show up to help? And then in the far-off future, this city that was made by that legendary has gone too far and encroached too much and pissed off Zygarde. Maybe even that tower in the center of Lumio City was built to honor a certain electric-type legendary from long, long ago. This game does present one question though. Where the hell are the Pokemon gonna be? Like, if we are entirely within Lumio City, then the Pokemon will just have to be walking around the city. And we have the technology to have Pokemon walking around a city, that's fine, but Pokemon typically has like caves and mountains and lakes and all this fun environment to explore. Where are they going to put it? I'm not saying the size isn't good enough. We saw in Blueberry Academy that they can fit a lot of environment in not a lot of space. And we see on the map of the city, this is a huge environment, but it is a city, so you can't like put a building in a lake. I don't know, maybe it'll be more of a Coliseum type game where the Pokemon are already owned by other trainers and we're taking some from abusive trainers. I don't know. It's something to think about. Regardless, I'm incredibly excited for it. What do you guys think of this game? What are your predictions for it? I would love to hear you in the comments. In the meantime, if you want a video that's about a Pokemon-like game, but not an actual Pokemon game, the last video on this channel was about Palworld and how it can't really overtake Pokemon because it's not really a Pokemon game, and you can watch it right here. Thanks for watching this video on Rytoost. Of all the YouTube channels in the world, this is the second one. And until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices. Gotta do that again.